I'm Steve Nawojczyk, and this is a 501 Coroner Special Report. Over my career, I worked deaths that didn't fit neatly into categories. These weren't sensational cases, they were complex cases. And complexity is where mistakes are most often made. This work didn't start for me with the John Markle case, a later investigation involving multiple gunshot wounds and multiple weapons that forced a hard look at what many people believe can't happen. It started earlier with a case the system got wrong. Millicent Lynn ingested pills, entered a lake, and discharged a small caliber pistol into her mouth. Her death was ruled a drowning. The case closed. It shouldn't have. Years later, investigative reporting revealed that when her body was exhumed, a bullet hole through her head was found that had not been identified during the original autopsy. That gunshot wound was missed. Her case became one of several that exposed serious failures within the Arkansas medical examiner system and ultimately resulted in a clean sweep and the firing of Stephen Marks, the chief medical examiner at the time. Nina Lynn was not an anomaly, she was a warning. Despite cases like hers, certain assumptions persisted that suicides follow predictable patterns, that drownings look a certain way, that gunshot suicides involve one shot, one wound, one weapon, that multiple gunshot wounds or layered methods can't happen. Those assumptions are comforting, they are also dangerous. Human behavior under extreme psychological distress does not follow tidy rules. The John Markle case came later. Markle involved two weapons, two discharges, essentially simultaneous to the head, not sequential, not survivability after a first wound, simultaneous. The immediate reaction from some was predictable. That can't happen. But the evidence didn't support dismissal. It demanded reconstruction, scene mechanics, physics, timing, anatomy. That case forced a harder look at multiple gunshot suicides, multiple weapons, and multiple modality deaths. Not because they're common, but because they're too often ruled out before the work is finished. For listeners who want the full John Markle case, including the investigative detail and reconstruction, that episode is available on the Coroner's Report podcast on all major podcast platforms. Rarity is not impossibility. Discomfort is not evidence. Over my career, I investigated suicides involving more than one method. Overdose combined with firearms, ingestion combined with water entry, carefully arranged drowning scenes paired with a firearm mechanism, cutting combined with pills, carbon monoxide layered with ingestion of pills. These were rarely impulsive acts. Using more than one method does not mean indecision. In many cases, it means the person had made up their mind and arranged for what they believed would ensure a final outcome. What changes in those moments isn't intent, it's thinking. Fear narrows perception. Critical reasoning slips. They become more afraid of continuing life than of dying. That is a dangerous precipice to reach. Now let's talk about the numbers because this isn't just anecdotal. National data shows that firearms account for roughly 55 to 60% of all suicides in the United States each year. That number has remained fairly stable over time. Most firearm suicides involve a single gunshot wound. That is the norm. But forensic case series and large medical examiner office reviews consistently show that a small percentage of firearm suicides involve more than one gunshot wound. Depending on how cases are defined, that number generally falls between 1 and 3%. That is rare, it is not zero. In those cases, most involve multiple discharges from the same weapon. Some involve head wounds, some involve chest wounds followed by head wounds. A much smaller subset involves multiple weapons or near simultaneous discharges. The presence of more than one gunshot wound does not determine the manner of death. It determines the level of scrutiny required. Another misunderstood issue is incapacitation. There is a widespread belief that a gunshot wound to the head always causes immediate loss of consciousness. Forensic pathology does not support that as an absolute. Depending on caliber, trajectory, and the structures involved, a person may retain the ability to act for seconds or even longer. That window is usually brief, however, but brief does not mean impossible. Multiple modality suicides appear infrequently in national summaries, but they are well documented in forensic literature and casework. They are often undercounted because once one lethal mechanism is identified, others may not be thoroughly evaluated. That is not a moral failure, it is a systems problem. Statistics do not decide individual cases. Evidence does. Numbers are context. They exist to discipline thinking, not replace it. They remind us to not say that can happen when the honest answer is it's uncommon, so we need to look at this very carefully. After the investigation ends, survivors are left with something heavier. They replay the same thoughts. If only I had. I should have known. Why didn't I see it? Those thoughts feel responsible, but most of the time they are pain looking for somewhere to land. When I worked with survivors of suicide, I encouraged them early to seek professional help. Suicide grief is different. It mixes loss with guilt, memory with hindsight, and blame with love. No amount of second guessing brings someone back. Survivors deserve permission to care for themselves without shame. This still matters today. It matters because the conditions that allowed Nina Lynn's death to be misread still exist. Workloads are heavy, resources are thin, and there's always pressure to reach a conclusion that feels familiar instead of one that requires more work. Once a ruling is made, it shapes everything that follows: grief, memory, legal outcomes, the story families carry for the rest of their lives. Every time we say that can't happen instead of show me how it could, we risk missing the truth again. Death doesn't owe us simplicity, but we owe the dead and the living careful, honest work. Y'all be kind to each other, okay?